In 2006, 120 schools from across England were selected to take part in the CARA project, the Creativity Action Research Awards. Schools such as Whitelaith Primary School in Leeds worked with external partners and mentors to investigate aspects of creativity in relation to teaching and learning.
The focus being on getting the kids to go through a process of collaboration in dance but also in science.
When the team from CARA met up with Zoe from Whitelaith and Claire and Kate from the Northern Ballet Theatre, the initial area of research was around open-ended learning and investigations in science. The team wanted to experiment with open-endedness in dance and see if their approach could be transferred into science. However, it soon became clear that the real issue facing the class was group work and collaboration. After initial observations of the class, there was a collective shift to this more specific outcome.
The ones that did seem to be working as a group, when we observed them carefully, they weren't. They were operating separately, they were operating individually, and if anything, they acted as an audience to each other.
The project activity would focus around how children manage uncertainty, find and solve problems, and how they behave in different kinds of group activity. A small number of children became the target group and were observed and tracked through the project. The team began to experiment with different kinds of groups and different levels of support and structure.
The kind of real creativity that goes on in a very ordinary way for everyone is working together, making things.
And also, a lot of creative ideas are 1 + 1 is 3 anyhow. It's taking 2 other ideas that weren't related. Two ideas that weren't related and bringing them together. So it's that lateral link quality, lateral aspect to it, really.
One of the sort of the central points about creativity in the way that Cape sees it is that it isn't based in the arts at all. It's very much a cross-curricular thing. You can be creative in math, you can be creative in science, you know, in the same way that you can be creative in art or drama. It might look different, but it's a set of skills that you can use and you know, a way of behaving that you can display in any kind of subject. So no, the schools, there was no rule about how creative the schools had to be. In fact, one of the main points about doing CARA for creative partnerships was it was a rollout of their kind of work beyond their particular areas that they work in.
Another school involved in this creative partnerships project was Doncaster Road Primary School in Barnsley. This school's approach to the research was quite different to Whitelaith. It was very experimental in the way sessions developed. Lewis, a local artist and sculptor, worked with Debbie from Doncaster Road to create a space where reception children could interact with their surroundings. The aim was to be child-centred, to watch how they would interact with the space and discover what kinds of stimulus would bring out the children's creativity.
And I'm going to show you all the different things that we've got in here, and then it's up to you which one you choose to work on. And if you want to move from one to the other, that's okay. And if you want to work with a friend, or maybe somebody you don't normally work with, and do a picture together, then that's okay as well. So shall we have a look inside and see what's what? Right, come on then.
Lewis was attempting to create an environment for children he didn't know, in a school he didn't know, and this brought additional challenges. After the first session, the team reflected on what had happened and the interactions in the space.
Coming as an artist into the school and not really knowing exactly what the children might be like, my approach was to make it kind of really exciting for them, because although they were sort of used to that space within the school, it was kind of full of computers, and the idea that this new thing was happening, wanted it to be exciting and interesting, so I made it, or tried to make it kind of almost like magical, with lots of bright colours and lots of sort of twinkling, sparkling lights, and so it was like a sort of magical feel to it. And then within that have the different things like the partitions. A lot of the space was built up with things being kind of separate compartments, because I kind of thought that if you have children going into those compartments, then they perhaps can have sort of social encounters with each other.
Bring this over because you're sat down very nicely. You've got some twist then. Yeah, alright then. Now we've got some really big sheets of paper up there, look. So you could either paint a big picture, maybe of something that you've made this morning, maybe something you make out of the clay you could possibly paint a big picture of, or you could use some of these, and I saw these in your classroom, so I think you've used these before, so you can use rollers. Instead of painting with a paintbrush, you could maybe use these. Hands up if you use one of these before. Some of you, and some of you haven't, so that might be something new for you.
It's funny when you kind of, the way they've approached some of the painting, it's a kind of a sort of a primitive, almost instinctive approach in terms of painting the hands and just the idea of getting paint and putting it on a surface rather than thinking about what they're painting or what they're drawing. Whereas with the clay, they're actually very focused, and they kind of, you know, this bit's the ears of the rabbit and that bit's that stone stuck on the back is the tail, and they're visually constructing in a way that they're not doing with 2D. It's like the 3D skills are more advanced than the 2D, which is, I wouldn't have thought that.
And she was actually exploring the clay and making patterns with it. And being creative with that, just looking to see what she could do with it.
They came to the conclusion that they needed to be more structured to their approach, with fewer children in the space and more adult intervention. The adults were finding that their own views about creativity were being challenged as a result of their research.
I don't think they've really worked collaboratively on anything this morning. Although they've perhaps worked on the same sheet of paper, they've not decided between them, right, we're going to cooperate and build a structure.
With the initial meetings over, Claire and Kate from the Northern Ballet Theatre had to introduce themselves to the Year 6 pupils at Whitelayth Primary. Their initial task was to explain what the next few weeks would hold, and also explain that they would be working towards a final production.
My name's Claire and this is Kate, and we're going to be working with you for 5 weeks. So the more you put in every week, every session, the better the final performance will be.
The Northern Ballet people basically came in with a view to creating a performance, a piece of dance that the children would create in a range of different ways, and that we had an overreaching theme of an alien, of forces, to try and link it to science, but we were really conscious we didn't want to enhance science with dance. We didn't want to dance the science. We were still trying to make the children realise that this was just another way of learning.
One. Can anybody tell me what happens when you jump? Oh, very scientific. Gravity pulls you back down. Fantastic. Anybody show me a jump? Anyone want to get up and demonstrate a jump? Go on, Carl. Okay, fantastic. Well done, thank you. Is that pretty much what happens every time you jump?
No, because really, if you didn't, really, all it is you telling your feet to bend.
When you're jumping in air, it's pretty predictable that you're going to come back down again, isn't it? Has anybody ever jumped and not come back down? Tell me what happens when you jump on a trampoline.
You bounce up and down all the time.
Yeah, you've got a bit more bounce, you go a little bit higher. What we're going to do now is we're going to have a little explore of what it's like to move in different sort of environments where there are different forces.
And now the wind is dropping slowly. You are now entering an area of low gravity. You may experience some feelings of floating. Everything you do will feel very light.
Slowly, Claire and Kate introduced different forces to the group and observed how they would interpret them through movement.
Feel the resistance from the water as you push it.
The concept of an alien dealing with these forces on Earth was the starting point, and the children worked in groups to devise what this alien would look like and how it would cope with different forces.
I think this one of us said something like, how would you explain a force if you didn't know what it was? And we thought, well, hang on, who wouldn't know what a force was? And that's where the idea of an alien from outer space came. It came from a BBC programme, I think, which is called The Experimenter, about an alien who comes down to Earth and absolutely knows nothing, and they've got the children that guide them through there. And it was, you know, a very human-looking alien, whereas ours turned out to be completely open, creative. The alien itself came from the children and their concept of what an alien was.
Make it as weird and
bizarre as you can.
Its legs has got 8 tentacles.
8 tentacles, excellent. What colour are they? Have they got feathers?
Not armed wings.
The armed wings is a nice idea.
When the children started to relate the concept of the alien to the different forces, the creativity really started to flow. Different ideas about how the alien would look and move came from the group, but the challenge for the adults was to closely observe the group's dynamics and their impact on the outcomes.
I liked how we worked in groups to create part of an animal.
Wow.
The sea creature and the drawing, and how we all came together and were doing different parts.
We had to use loads of different people to actually make it work, because our sequence of movements wouldn't work if it were just one person.
And done it backwards? Is that? Like a reflection? S-Dog, wasn't he? His name is Joisp, which I think is all their initials combined. Maybe not, actually, maybe not. Are there specific things that they've...
Sort of underwater.
Underwater, right. Because they've used what they've taken from other things, you see, as well, like they've thought about tentacles and wings that can turn into rockets and stuff and all sorts of things.
If they'd said, we'll all design our own and then we'll take the best bits and make another one.
But that's the thing we're trying to get at, is collaboration, and like, you know, your suggestion plus mine makes something completely different. I mean, one person was making a lot of suggestions on this one, but they were talking to each other. Because somebody said, oh, these aren't just like suckers on the end of the tentacles, these can like sense different conditions and bring information, and these ones sense water and these ones sense land things, you know. And so what were your observation then, from a distance? What did it look like?
I thought they were all working quite well together.
Yeah.
I really did.
Because there weren't any arguments or any... Normally you do get some kind of disagreement, you get some kind of animation or...
But then there wasn't
some
any...
kind of falling out, but it was all...
There was no conflict, because if they were...
There wasn't any moving away from the group at all. There was they all stayed in the groups.
Yeah.
Sort of separated out, or went, oh, I'm not working with you, or walking off.
But they were all engaged.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were all just happily getting on with it very quietly.
Yeah.